Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or a big welcome if you're new here. My name's Jenny and I make all sorts of lifestyle content on this channel. So I make things like weekly vlogs, I make videos about chronic illness, mental health, disability, a bit of Disney, fashion, beauty, travel, and pretty much everything in between. So hopefully there'll be a video here that you'll enjoy, and I really hope you'll stick around to watch this video. So in today's video we are talking about the pandemic, and in particular we're talking about how it has affected people with EDS's access to things like diagnosis, treatment, support, that kind of things, and also the impact that this has had on their overall health. Like the other videos, I have got quite a few people with EDS who have said that they will talk about their experiences, which is really, really helpful. So you get to hear a whole range of experiences rather than just me talking. And yeah, they've spoken about the pandemic and how it's affected them. Hopefully it will just help to raise a bit of awareness about what the last year has been like for people with EDS, and also just hearing stories and hopefully something that some people might be able to relate to. So yeah, here's our stories about the pandemic.
The pandemic has added more stress around keeping myself healthy.
Like I said, I'm waiting for a referral to neurology. I was supposed to be referred back in September, but the doctor forgot, so he urgently referred me last week. And I am just waiting to find out if I might have to have brain surgery, which is fantastic. Testing and treatment, I have struggled to get a hold of a doctor or to get a doctor to take me seriously for anything over the past year, and I understand what's happening to me is not as immediately harmful as COVID. And like I said, they're overworked. They are looking after patients who they know are going to die. They are doing so much right now that everybody else just kind of gets pushed to the side because they have no other choice. So I feel like they need to be funded more. They need to have more people. They need to have better services. The doctors, nurses, everybody in the NHS deserves that, because a lot of them want to do their job and they're just not given the tools to do it. Also, I have had some trouble getting hold of painkillers, and I've had absolutely no luck getting referrals to anywhere else to help with my physical pain. And even talking to the doctor about struggling with work, they don't seem to want to do anything. This is a completely different doctor than what diagnosed me, and nobody is helping with saying, okay, maybe you shouldn't be going to work. Okay, maybe we'll sign you off, let you recover, because I'm really struggling with the pain and dislocations right now. My health is basically going downhill. I am struggling day to day, struggling more than I ever have. Mentally, it's put a massive toll on me, just knowing that I know in the morning when I wake up I'm going to be in pain. I know at night, unless I have painkillers, I'm not getting to sleep. And I know that there's nothing I can do about it. I've bought myself crutches, braces, tape. I've tried anything that anybody suggested, vitamins, pills, everything. And unless I have a doctor's help, there's nothing I can do to improve my life. At the moment, I'm not living, I am existing, and I'm existing in a cloud of pain and a cloud of shame and a cloud of depression because I can't cook with my wife, so she has to cook for me. I can't help her clean. I can't wash the dishes. I can't help her make the bed because everything hurts all the time. And frankly, there are a lot of things that I just can't do because I can't lift certain things or reach certain things, or, you know, things that should be simple for a 28-year-old to do that I just can't do. So I feel like I end up being a burden, and I feel like there's nothing I can do to improve it in any way. So mentally it's just taking a toll on me.
As a public school teacher who has Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, hypermobility type, the pandemic has really proven to be a struggle. And the first 6 months of 2020, when we went fully remote, before I could come back into my classroom in the fall, I was homebound. And that meant that I wasn't moving around at all during the day when I was teaching. It really flared up my pain, made everything a lot worse. Energy was low, And I realized that I needed to see more doctors. I needed more help.
So I'm in France, and we are in our third lockdown. Yay! But actually it's okay right now. The first one was the worst because it was a real lockdown, and no one was working, and yeah, you would have access only to doctors, and for me, doctors are not very helpful. The people who helps me the most are my osteopaths, my acupuncturist, all the alternative medicines person. All this person was not working because of the lockdown, in the first one at least. And I spent like a month without being able to get out of my bed because I have a side joint disorder, and it was my sacrum was subluxed in some way, and it was impossible for me to sit or to stand up for a long time. I was not able to walk. I'm living at the fourth floor without an elevator. So yes, it was very, very complicated. I'm living alone. I don't have anyone to help me. So yeah, no groceries, no medicine, no access to nothing, and I was pretty desperate because I was like, okay, I know what I have, but I can't fix it because the only person which are able to fix it are not working. And they were sorry for me because they answered their phone, but they were not allowed to help me. So yeah, it was very difficult. And actually, I had the same. So 1 year later, I had the exact same injury, and right now I have a ghost pain. So the problem is fixed, but the pain is still here, and I'm still limited because of it in my range of motion, etc. And this is a ghost pain, and I think it's because of the trauma I had last year during the lockdown.
Fui diagnosticada formalmente durante la pandemia, y si bien el diagnóstico y el investigar por mi cuenta trajo muchas respuestas, algunos estudios, consultas médicas y tratamientos se tuvieron que posponer, lo cual a veces llegaba a ser un proceso cansado y frustrante. Si bien el ser diagnosticada durante la pandemia no fue lo mejor debido a que se tenían que posponer algunos estudios o consultas, para mí la pandemia me hizo darme cuenta que algunos síntomas que yo normalizaba por mi estilo de vida, como la fatiga, mareos o el dolor crónico, seguían presentes, por lo que la pandemia para mí fue una gran herramienta que me llevó a buscar respuestas y a tener actualmente mi diagnóstico.
So I went to a new orthopedist last year in October because my old orthopedist just dismissed my symptoms and I was in severe pain, so I just switched orthopedists and he examined me and then referred me to get genetic testing. And then in December I had an appointment for genetic testing, which actually was quite fast. It only took me 2 months to get an appointment, and after that I got my results back for the genes, and then I went to the geneticist again in April of this year and got my hEDS diagnosis. I don't think the pandemic has had that great of an impact because I still could get appointments really fast. The geneticist was very, really understanding of my symptoms. But I do think that the pandemic has affected my access to proper treatment and management and support because physical therapy isn't as accessible anymore, even though I did have some, but I think that the pandemic hasn't had that great of an impact on it. It's more the lack of doctors and the lack of physical therapists that specialize in Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome or have enough knowledge about it, rather than the pandemic affecting me personally. So I got genetic testing and diagnosis pretty fast after people really saw my symptoms and started saying that this could be Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. Without physical therapy, I don't really know how to put my joints back in or back in place. I do know now a bit better, but not really. And my muscle mass has decreased a little bit due to the lack of strengthening, due to the lack of sport and workouts. Like, I try to compensate this at home, but that it's not the same as my previous life. So my joints have become very unstable until now, and yeah, they sublux and they are just out of place, which is a bit uncomfortable. But yeah, that's basically the impact for me.
So for me, the pandemic has had quite a big impact on my access to medical care, support, treatment, that kind of things. When the pandemic first hit, basically everything was cancelled. So I lost my physio, and all of my appointments with my specialists were cancelled, which has been quite difficult. I got quite upset about it, like to begin with, because I just went from having like some support to having basically nothing. And I would say it has had quite a big impact on my health because, you know, I haven't been able to see those specialists to get advice about symptoms and things like that. It's been quite difficult to be in contact with my GP, so I haven't had that kind of emotional support that I get from her. And it's just, yeah, it's been hard, really hard, not having any kind of medical interventions. And losing all of those, I think, has had quite a big impact on my health. My health does seem to have got worse over the last year. And I guess that's partly because I haven't been able to do things like physio and get that kind of input of sort of trying to keep things moving and helping specific injuries. But I also haven't been able to, you know, speak to doctors about certain medications or get specific symptoms looked into. So they have just kind of got worse and piled up. And I think just everything on top of each other has made stuff quite hard. Also, just generally, you know, I chose to shield because although my EDS doesn't give me a particularly, you know, like lowered immune system, I do have a pretty rubbish immune system. So I knew that if I was to catch COVID, it was likely to make me quite unwell. So yeah, I chose to shield, but that came without any support because I wasn't on the shielding list. So that's been really hard, you know, just not having the support, I think, and trying to deal with a chronic genetic condition alone for a year, or over a year, and also trying to deal with shielding and the worries about COVID and what it could do to me and whether I would actually be able to get treatment, because there's been a lot of talk about, you know, treatment being limited with the frailty index and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's had a big impact on my mental health and my physical health, I think. And yeah, it's just been really difficult. So yeah, that's how it's been for me.
I think the pandemic has affected me a lot, especially towards the beginning when the pandemic sort of started reaching its full capacity around March of last year. Colombia just shut down. It was in complete quarantine. It wasn't that you could optionally go outside. No, everything was shut down. And all of the non-vital medical procedures were also canceled. And so I remember by that time I was just starting physiotherapy for my shoulders, my wrists, and my back. And I couldn't keep going because of the pandemic. Thankfully, I was able to purchase some of the things that I would use in physiotherapy, so some weights, some of the bands. It wasn't nearly enough compared to what they actually had in the physiotherapist's office, but it was at least something that I could do in the meantime. But it definitely affected my joints a lot. It affected when I needed to go to a new doctor because I couldn't. I had to push back a lot of medical appointments. When it was just with doctors that I had gone to before, it wasn't that bad because we could do it online and they had already seen me, but when it was something that was like a first-time appointment, it had to be pushed back. So I think this affected a lot of people. It also affected access to medication. It was a little bit more difficult because I got a lot of my medication from my insurance, so it wasn't as easy to do it when everything was completely shut down. Right now it's much better. Things are starting to sort of kind of begin to go back to normal, even though we're still in selective quarantines. I think it mostly impacted my health with physiotherapy because I wasn't able to go. I've gotten much better at it, doing it by myself and doing the exercises, but it's never the same as having a physiotherapist look at you and make sure that you're doing it right and sort of try to get your joints back into place how they should be. So I definitely think that's the biggest impact that it's had on me. And I think also one of the biggest impact is, again, going to doctors that I have to go to for the first time. A lot of them aren't doing in-person consultations yet, so it can be a little difficult to sort of find a time that works for me and for them because I am a medical student. I'm in med school, so my schedule is a bit hard to try to like work around and try to also work around the doctor's schedule.
I was actually diagnosed during the pandemic, so it did kind of affect how long it took for me to get that diagnosis because I couldn't see my doctor in person and she was weary about doing this diagnosis over Zoom, which is what we ended up doing, and it ended up being that I had it. So the pandemic is affecting my treatment as well. I am supposed to be seeing my doctor in person. She is supposed to be doing like massage and stuff on my neck. She's supposed to be helping me with all these things, and I can't see her in person. Hopefully now that I'm vaccinated that will change. But yeah, it's been lonely out here not being able to go see my doctor and get fixed.
The pandemic, I think for a lot of people it probably affected some of their treatments, especially those that are more active in physical therapy and any holistic stuff like acupuncture and such. But for me, more access to the virtual was helpful in me keeping up more frequently with my health care. But support, I will say, through no one's fault, has wavered a bit. Because in my area that I'm in Florida, we have a lot of support groups that were in person before, and we're already fairly isolated people, and just not having that and just the online, really just group post on Facebook, that I think drained me, and now I feel like I have a little less support because I just pulled away from those groups because I just couldn't handle looking at EDS being my every single day, if that makes sense. But the pandemic on my overall health, definitely more mental. I've been able to keep up with my physical health, doctors, treatments, research that I do on my own, I continue that self-led journey. But mentally, yes, it's really the isolation piece. Representation. You know, we need to see people like us, which of course I know is not safe currently, although is hopefully becoming safer. But yeah, I mean, research has shown that the brain doesn't really understand looking at 2D people, especially multiples on like a Zoom or things like that. It's very mentally taxing, and I think mask as well, although, you know, they have certainly saved our lives and we need to keep them up. You know, we have to realize that that also impacts, which is why I love the ones that show the mouth, but it can be especially accessible for the deaf community as well.
Pandemic is pretty tough in terms of travel, but I'm able to get appointments, no bother. But even if it's just like call appointments, which has its uses, I'm able to still get appointments even if I was worried about it at first. I feel like the impact of getting appointments and that is tough, but I was lucky to be able to get what I could. I think it was tough overall for my mental health, physical health as well, because we in the beginning of pandemic lockdown we couldn't really go anywhere, so overall I thought that was quite tough, and it can be tough for those with chronic pain who need to do simple things in life.
So from the start, when appointments, medical appointments, physiotherapist appointments started getting cancelled, I'll admit I was anxious, I was worried about how my care would be impacted, but in reality it was actually one of the best things to happen. Where possible, a lot of these appointments just shifted to Zoom calls. And for those that weren't shifting onto Zoom, what I started to realise was that I didn't need them as much as I thought I did. I was relying on them a little bit too much. And actually, all the stuff that went around an appointment, the travelling, the actually just being there in person was causing a hell of a lot of stress to me. And that actually just eroded the benefit I was getting from them. So it really made me kind of question and be a lot more discerning about what appointments I attended and what I didn't. I would love to hear others' views on whether they've gone through a similar process.
So I really hope that hearing all of these different people talk about how the pandemic has affected their access to diagnosis and treatment and support, and the impact that this has had on their lives has been helpful. I hope it's just helped people to understand what it's been like for people with EDS and other chronic conditions as well over the last year. I think it's really important that these voices are heard and that they're understood. So hopefully this will go some way to doing that, and I really appreciate everybody that's been part of this for giving up their time and talking about their experiences. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more from me, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Also hit the notification bell, that means you'll get notified every time I upload a video so you don't miss anything. Leave me a comment, let me know how the pandemic has affected you if you have a chronic illness, whether it's had a big impact on your health, whether you have lost medical appointments and treatments, how that's affected you. It'd be really interesting to hear your stories. Also let me know if there's any videos you'd like to see me do, whether they're about EDS or whether they're about something completely different. It would just be good to hear what sort of things you'd like to see. Also come and follow me on social media. My links are in the description below, but I'll put my Instagram and Twitter up here. Those are the two platforms that I'm mainly on, so do come over and say hello. I'm replying to comments as quickly as I can. It might take me a little while because of my health, but I really appreciate anyone that takes the time to comment, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!